Coming to you from Chicago, Illinois, this is Michael Herkus, the Glam Witch. Are you ready for real talk with real witches? Well, join me as I talk to some of my favorite friends and others in the magical community. From crystal healing to cooking magic, love spells and glamour, astrology, divination, and more, I've got you covered. This is the Glam Witch Gab. Magical moments with friends. So grab your broom and come into my room for a little bit of magic. Hi everyone, Michael Herkus here, and welcome to the Glam Witch Gab, my new web series where I talk to some of my favorite friends in the magical community about a wide variety of topics. And tonight I'm having on one of my good friends, Kiki, who is a contributing writer for Which Way magazine, much like I am. She's also a really wonderful writer and has written 2 different books. So we have 8 Extraordinary Days, and we also have A Curious Future. I always say fortune on accident.
That's good too.
It's a really good book that talks all about different forms of divination. And so that's what I wanted to talk to Kiki about today, because she's my go-to guru for anything divination purposes, and is a wonderful, experienced tarot reader. So we'll be touching base a little bit about tarot, and then we'll also be touching base on Beltane, because that's what's coming up right around the corner on the day that this is airing. So without further ado, hello, Miss Kiki. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well. How are you doing?
I am doing as good as I can in this self-quarantining world that we're living in right now.
This brave new world.
Yes, seriously. So why don't you kind of explain to everybody who you are? I know I just gave a kind of a quick little rundown, but just kind of who you are and how you got started in witchcraft and magic and tarot. And then we can kind of segue from there.
Sounds great. So I found all of this stuff at a very young age, which I think is really fortunate. I'm really thankful that I was able to encounter the world of magic and the world of tarot and divination early on. I wish I could say that it was like some sort of mystical encounter, like, you know, like I had this vision or this dream, but I saw tarot on my so-called life, which is
nice. I didn't know that. Awesome.
Yeah. So, God, well, how old was I? I mean, like, I must have been like 12, 13. I always say that I started reading tarot when I was 13. So I saw it on TV and I thought, wow, that's really awesome. I want to be able to do that. And fortunately, my mother took me to a new age shop down the road. And the nice people at this shop were able to point me in the right direction and get me started with tarot. And kind of, for me, tarot was the gateway to all things magical, all things supernatural, all things witchy. And I don't know, even as a young child, I knew that I was a little bit different. But when I started to discover witchcraft, I really felt like I fell into something that felt very genuine, authentic, and personal to what resonated with me spiritually. So from a very young age, and by that I mean like really 13, 14, I remember you were showing like that wonderful like notebook that you made in high school. Yes. Yeah. In 9th grade, we had this project called the I Report, as in I am.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so for my I project, I studied witchcraft. And so I did this huge semester-long book report on witchcraft and read The Power of the Witch by Laurie Cabot. And it just
Great book.
That was it. That was it. I was convinced. I was reading tarot. I was reading Laurie Cabot. And from there on, I just found ways to incorporate witchcraft, magic, and divination into my life.
I love that. It's funny too, because I started out at a very, very young age, my preteen years, like 11, 12 years old, really getting into witchcraft. And it was all from, much like you, television and the shows and things that I was seeing, and just have always been fascinated with the witch and just having this kind of enchantment and just, lack of a better term, glamour that the witch had. I always really, really loved. And so I think it's cool that we have similar experiences with that. Now, I personally started doing tarot much later in my ventures into witchcraft. So I was probably around like 16, 17 when I started to actually kind of like pick it up and play with it a little bit, and then kind of start to learn. So when you were learning tarot and everything, I think you were pretty much self-taught at that point, or?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure that there were classes on tarot somewhere, but it was a different time. You didn't just go onto Facebook and find or Tumblr.
Not really an oracle back then.
Yeah, it was just a different method of learning and a different way of connecting. Like, I love Tumblr, and I love social media. It's really amazing how lucky people are now to be able to access this information really easily. For me, it was the New Age shop down the road from my house, and Barnes and Noble. I had Barnes and Noble, which I would go there and I would browse. They had 2 bookshelves in this massive store, and these 2 bookshelves were full of witch books and tarot books. And so for me, I would say all the way until probably about the age, until post high school, it was self-taught. It was practicing by myself. I had a couple friends in high school that also had tarot decks, so we would always read for each other. Yeah. And I had a couple very favorite books that I absolutely loved and revered. And that was how I learned, was just study, reading, practicing by myself. And then finally discovering that there were other people that taught this and did this stuff. It was a really wonderful feeling.
When you started, in comparison to how you are now, are you very by the book? When you read, do you go based off of more exactly what the card means, or more how you're feeling? Because I see that there's a kind of a big difference in answers with that. And I know for myself, I do have the understanding of what each card means, but I look at it more as what the feeling I'm generating and what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I've read for people who've kind of started to just start out and are so by the book, they're like, well, no, that's not what it means. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to allow the message to come through you and what you actually see in the card. So there's as you know, there's many different meanings to even the same card, how you look at it and how the symbolism of the card is detailed.
Yeah.
So, and then have you used the same deck since the beginning? Did you start off with a traditional Rider-Waite? Or how did that start for you?
Rider-Waite, and kind of like you too, I do half and half. So I definitely respect and honor the interpretation of the cards. And so I will always go with that. But when you start putting different cards down next to each other, it's like you're creating a story, and you've built a storyboard out of this tarot spread. And it's up to you and the knowledge that you've obtained from all your practice and your research and your studying, but also the wisdom that you feel from your intuition. So you might look at this little tiny symbol, like a little bird on a random card, and you're like, well, I've never noticed that before. And all of a sudden that's a really big part of, the interpretation and the meaning. So I think it's really important to just to always go back to that intuitive feeling. I have used the Rider-Waite deck ever since my first deck. And now, I just love it. There's something I just love I love the artwork. I now use it's called the Smith Waite Centennial. So it's just like a little bit different from the Rider Waite. I feel like the colors are just like a little bit more muted, and yeah, and then like the back of the card is really pretty. I never really liked that plaid pattern on the back of the Rider Waite. So
I'm really picky about the backs of my cards. Like if it has a horrible back, I probably won't work with it.
Right.
And even like I didn't start with the Rider Waite. I ended up starting with like some pocket deck that was like at the checkout lines at Borders back in the day, which I'm sure you remember seeing. They had like kits and like all these little like kit things.
Oh yeah.
That's how I started. And then I remember I got something that was like a very like photographic collage deck that was kind of like Mists of Avalon-ish. It really jive with that well either. And it wasn't until I got, when was it? I wouldn't say maybe like 5-6 years ago that I think it was called the Deck of the Bastard, which is a deck that kind of combines some more ancient, this is the best way I can think about it, like older styled major arcana pictures, and then kind of having the Rider Waite minors as well. And I love those, and I tried to tell people when I'm teaching them or giving lectures on tarot to really, it's important to start with the Rider Waite, I think, because that's where like you get all of the symbolism and you can actually see what the card means. And once you kind of get that kind of moving forward. Right now I'm kind of working with the Dolly Tarot. I really like it.
Yes, that Dolly Tarot is
It's
so
really gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's definitely one where like your knowledge of a Rider Waite will come in handy. Because Dolly's stuff is so abstract and out of this world that it can get a little confusing if you're picking that up as someone that's brand new.
Sure. I think the thing that would be fun about the Dolly deck is also that surrealist art really lends well to working with your intuition and being guided by your intuitive response to the imagery that Dolly creates. So
that's a really good point. So tarot in general, we are in a kind of crazy time, as we know. We've talked about it on a couple of occasions.
Oh boy, yeah.
The tarot, just kind of in general in your overall practice, and then how do you kind of also use it as a therapeutic sense to kind of help manage through difficult times?
So the first thing I think of is that for me, like self-reading, I will pull a card for myself every now and then, but I'm kind of at the point now where I pull a card and I meditate on it. And I call it like that, I work in the corporate world. So it's like my deep dive into a tarot card, and I'll pull a card and I'm like, wow, this one keeps coming up in people's readings. I'm going to take a deep dive into it. And I start like pulling apart the different symbolism and the different ideas. And so for me, I've often called myself a bookworm witch because I love research and I love reading. And so for me, there's something very cathartic and therapeutic about diving into the research on the symbols and the themes and the mythology and the history behind a card. There's something cathartic about that. And there's always a lesson to be learned. There's always that concluding aha moment when you reread a card and maybe really, really put a magnifying glass over it. So my self-reading at this point is really just being nerdy and picking apart a card by going through tons and tons of sources. In terms of a therapeutic tool, I think of tarot as an opportunity to really hone in on the present moment. And so something that I tell my clients in particular is that when you get a reading with me, it's not going to be this sort of like, not that I have anything wrong with it, but it's not a Miss Cleo experience. I'm not going to tell you the name of your great grandmother's cat. I'm not going to give you lottery numbers. I'm not going to tell you when you're going to get married. No. The whole idea of getting a tarot reading is to spiritually assist you and uplift you, so you have some mental and spiritual tools to develop the most
Yeah.
productive and robust future for yourself. So, so in terms of therapy, it's more of like, I think of it as life coaching. So I'm a certified life coach. I don't have like an LCW or anything like that. So I'm not doing any like cognitive behavioral therapy with my cards, but I am doing life coaching. In other words, it's an exchange. It's a conversation when you get a tarot reading. I don't expect a person to just sit there and nod. I'm going to ask questions, you know, I'm going to ask how they feel and you know, and look for some interaction, so we can sort of not only use the cards as a way to see what's most valuable to focus on at the present moment, but also to start creating action plans.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And I like what you said too, because one of the most frustrating things for me when I've read at different events or restaurants and things like that is having a guest or someone who just does sit there, that doesn't give you anything and does that whole like prove that you're a psychic thing. And I love, like, you were someone who I think I heard a long time ago, and I loved what you said. Something along the lines of like, you don't play that game and you are fine with like just saying, I'm not here to do that. Like, we're done. I don't know why, like, but when I heard you like say that a long time ago, it was just like, it stuck with me and I have no problem saying that anymore. You would think that it was like common knowledge, but I always felt like I needed to really try to find what they wanted to hear, but it's not like, we know tarot doesn't work like that.
Right.
So, and people are always going to get upset when they don't get what they want to hear and they're frustrated by it.
Well, and I think that's challenging for a tarot reader too, because you want to be accommodating. This is a level of customer support and customer service. You're assisting somebody, you're trying to make them feel better. But if they come at you and say, well, I don't believe it, this is not an even exchange.
Exactly. Like, well, then what are we doing here? Like, why are you wasting your time and my time in the process?
Yeah, then just go back to the bar and Chili's. Like, I don't have time for this. Like, if you're not here to grow and you're not here to have this exchange. So it is. And it's even more difficult too, because we don't want people to dislike us. We want to be approved and we want to help people and we want to heal people. But I think one good way is to just, you know, approach it and saying, well, this is not something that I'm trying to prove. This is meant to help you feel better. This is meant to help you develop yourself. This is meant for you to have a mystical experience, it's not just a, you know, God, what was the Chris Angel street show? This is you're sitting with the witch. So you really need to decide if that's something that you want to do or not. But the other thing too is that there's also working tarot card readers. So you can't, for me, I do it part-time. So I can say that and not be worried. But what about the person that, you know, they do this full-time, they can't lose that client. Yeah. So they just kind of have to like, okay, well, sure. I'll, you know, let's look at the cards and see what I could prove. You know, it's very difficult. It's a struggle. And I think that more than anything, what we need to try and do is help people understand what tarot really is. It's not necessarily just as it's portrayed on TV, although I'm thankful it was portrayed on TV because that's how I found it. You know, it's not just a tool to write somebody off the script.
Like a television show that incorporates the tarot cards, and they're like trying to explain what it means, and it does not mean that at all. Like, I can't stand that. Like, I remember even there was an episode in, like, I think it was season 2 of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina that was all based on tarot cards and tarot readings. And some of them were okay and kind of spot on, but then some of them were like, wait, that's not what this means at all. So I always think that that's kind of funny. Like, they just are like, oh, okay, well, we'll just add a tarot person in, and this is what they'll see, but not actually do any research on what those actual cards mean. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't watch the Sabrina show. I'm really bad with television. Oh, but could I tell you this? This is kind of on topic, but a little bit, because there is one show that I watch obsessively, Golden Girls.
Oh,
And guess what tarot deck is coming to my house in a couple weeks?
oh my God, I'm so excited. The Golden Girls Tarot deck, obviously.
Yes.
I saw that and I was like, this is so awesome. And I really kind of need it to like see it. So when you get it, please like give me a shout out because I'm really curious, like
Oh my God.
who they
I can't
put
wait.
as what for which cards and all of that cool stuff. Like I think it's gonna be so fun.
Well, you know that the devil card is
Or
Blanche
is it
dressed
just
in
for me?
red. Oh,
What,
sorry.
oh, what was that? What did you say about something in red?
Oh, Blanche Devereaux is the
Uh,
devil, and she's dressed in a red dress.
oh, I love it. How perfect is that? That's awesome.
I'm so
Um,
excited.
now is it a full tarot deck or is it just the majors?
It's a full
Oh, one.
tarot
Oh, I
deck.
gotta get this. This is so fun. I think that's cool too because I know like people get so hooked on their tarot cards and even their oracle card decks and end up having like 50 different decks that they like and that they have. And I just think that it's wonderful because first and foremost, it's an appreciation of art, just in general, and then also being able to tell the stories with the art. So I'm really happy that like tarot has kind of become so mainstream maybe in the last couple of years, even more so than witches and witchcraft, because tarot I think is universal, a little bit more universal. How do you feel about it? Like, do you think that it's annoying having so many people dabbling and playing with the tarot, or are you excited about it?
Sorry about my cat jumping around.
Okay, mine's running around here doing something too.
I knew it was going to happen. You know, there's pluses and there's minuses. So I'm so excited. Like some people will call it like the hashtag Insta Witch trend, and you know there will sort of be this ongoing joke about the accessibility to witchcraft and magic and how everybody's doing it, and some people are super happy about it, but then some people sort of feel a little threatened by it. I think that it can make people feel uncomfortable because maybe it's a lot of introductions. It's a lot of people that may not have the information or the experience, but they're able to go and I don't know. Like I think about Instagram and I'm like, man, everybody has a tarot. Everybody's a tarot reader now. But and I guess that I'm happy that people are using it more because it's a really, really powerful tool. The thing that does concern me, so like on the flip side, is that we have to be mindful about whether or not we feel we're in a space where we can actually commit to being a reader for the public and as a professional reader, and there's no certification, and that's probably a good thing. Like you don't graduate from tarot and get some sort of like certificate that says like now I'm allowed to practice, which is good because that means that everybody has this opportunity and it's accessible. But at the same time, what makes a good reader?
Yeah.
I don't know. And sometimes it makes me nervous. I have worked in metaphysical stores before, and there are people that, I remember one October, everybody who's worked in a witch shop knows that one October. And I remember one October, somebody came running in looking for a book on tarot because they were going to read tarot at a party for people. And it's like, okay, great. Like, I'm so excited that you want to do this. But I think there's a lot of responsibility when you read for other people. It could be very draining energetically.
That's very true. Like I know specifically, like having done some events and parties and stuff like that, it can be so draining after doing 30 10-minute readings or something like that back to back. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And you have to know how to hold space for somebody in a safe way, in a way where you honor what they're going through privately, and you create a safe environment for them where you're able to listen actively, where you're able to give them helpful advice. And that takes a lot of effort and practice. So I'm all about everybody learning how to read tarot, and I want everybody to read tarot, but I also want them to know that tarot isn't just episode 2 of season 1 of Sabrina, or just that one episode of My So-Called Life. Now we're talking about My So-Called Life. This is like something I watched on ABC when I was 12 years old, and I'm still a student of tarot. in what 2020. So this is not something that's just, you know,
there's no, like, I think I know what you're trying to say. Like, there's no ending to it. Like, as long as you're practicing it, you're constantly learning, you're constantly developing a relationship. Even when you get that new deck, you have to learn how to work with it. You have to learn how the images relate to you, or the people that you're reading. And I have some decks that I know I use specifically for me because they're more connected to me. I have others that I always use when I do public readings because people like those ones more and they get fascinated with them because they're colorful and pretty and all of that stuff. And I think that engagement and that creation of excitement is really, really good too. So kind of maneuvering and figuring out how to work with your cards and listening to how they want to work for you is important.
I like that. I like that idea of like actually having a conversation with your tarot deck and not just thinking of it as like, you know, like a spatula in the kitchen. Like this is something that you can have like an actual energetic dialogue with of some kind. I like that.
So going back to something you had mentioned earlier. So you were talking about kind of how you're working with tarot now and kind of looking at maybe cards that you see constantly coming up and diving deep into them. So with everything going on right now, are there certain cards that you have been seeing regularly or?
Yes.
So yes. What are those and kind of what's your take on what they're trying to say right now?
Well, maybe this will be a good time where I could bounce some ideas off of you because I never in my life would imagine this card to come up nonstop. I'm trying to find it so I could hold it up so people who are watching might be able to go, oh, what card is that? And then we could at least like look at it together. The Three of Pentacles.
Oh, interesting.
So
I would say that I get that relatively often. And for me, it really shows teamwork. Like I always look at that card as being, you know, there's no I in team, like working together with either, not necessarily even friends, but just learning how to cohabitate and mingle and connect and carry your weight. And then also maybe carry someone else's weight when necessary and really just kind of establishing that. I think that makes a lot of sense too for what we have going on right now, because we all are isolated and feel alone, but we're also all in this together. And it's a great way to realize that even though we are physically alone, we're not alone in what we're going through. And we do have like different ways in which we can communicate and connect with people and work on things right now.
I love it. I love that interpretation. Yeah, it's a really interesting card. So the funny thing that I think about it is I'm like, well, they kind of are social distancing in this card.
They kind of are. They are.
There almost looks like there's 6 feet of space between them ish. But yeah, I love that idea. I just dropped it on the ground. So there I go. And I am the type of person where like my cat will swat it around. I actually found like another, this is the Ogum or the Ohm. My cat found this and was throwing it around. So anyways, I got to pick stuff off the ground. But the Three of Pentacles, yeah, I love that idea of the community. And for me too, when I see this card, you know, some people will say it's an architect that's talking to 2 people. That looks like a bishop because they have like that priest or that monk haircut. And so for me, the Three of Pentacles has always been a communication card. And I love that idea. It's about building community. It's about growing something that everybody can be a part of. And I wonder too, if this is the equivalent of Zoom meetings in the tarot. Because like, to me, it almost looks like there are these people that are talking about things that they all feel they have in common. So maybe in a way it's reaching out and making that community. So I'm like, man, maybe this is like the Zoom meetings of COVID-19.
Or even learning the like the necessity, like how much it's needed, how much community maybe we weren't really paying attention to before all of this happened, you know, and taking things for granted. And now it's all been kind of taken away. And once things are taken away, we usually sadly start to realize what we had and what we've lost. It's kind of like a little bit of a warning, not even like warning. Warning's probably the wrong terminology for it, but just kind of an outcome for what's going to come of this current situation.
Yeah, being mindful of what is valuable to you and what is valuable in the exterior world. And there's a knowledge aspect of this card as well. So that could be one of the lessons. And sometimes I think of this card as, an opportunity card. What are you going to learn? Is there a skill that you can pick up while you're quarantining? And I'm definitely I'm a proponent of hey, if you don't feel like doing anything and you just need time to kind of work through the trauma or the grief that we're all coping with, then that's okay. But if you do have that energy and excitement to pick up something, maybe the Three of Pentacles is that support card to say, hey, you could learn a skill that can help you in the world, that can help other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And is that the only card that's been coming up for you, or are there any other ones that have been kind of you've seen a lot of lately?
A lot of people were talking about seeing the Tower card before this all happened.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
We talked right before all of this happened, and we were pulling a couple of cards, and I remember some notable ones too, because we were mainly looking at maybe the election and politics and different things like that. And I remember we had pulled the Tower. I remember that. And I also remember the Four of Swords specifically coming up, having that kind of rest, that mental rest, and the complete destruction and chaos of everything. So, and I've talked to so many other different readers and people who are intuitive and just witches in general. And everyone kind of had some kind of an uneasy feeling. One friend of mine had just told me that it was in December that she started to feel a little anxious about her work environment. So she went and got another job that would be better suited for her. That's now allowing, luckily she did, and she has the ability to work from home now and all of that, which is wonderful. But even myself and freaking out about different things and being able to see people and plans and things earlier on before all of this kind of happened was interesting, looking at how we were sensing that there was a shift and something was coming.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we all kind of knew going into 2020 that 2020 was going to be tricky. It was going to be tricky to navigate. It would be a challenge to try and interpret the information that was being put out there. And we were spot on with that. But I never really, it's interesting though. I don't know if I know I didn't. I wasn't oh, there's going to be a big virus. I don't know. I don't know if there was anybody that really said, I think a big virus is going to come through,
But the one thing that I thought was interesting was, do you remember when we did the tarot, around New Year's Eve on the Which Way group?
Yeah.
Something. And I remember I was pulling cards, and there was I had this big earthly connection. Do you remember that? I remember seeing the earth and how the earth was going to be a major piece of the puzzle of 2020. I think it was the Queen of Pentacles, and I always associate her with earth and just bounty and abundance and all of the greenery and nature in general, mother nature. So I thought that was a little interesting too, because I thought that it was going to be some kind of an environmental bill or something that was going to happen, but this viruses are part of nature, and that come up.
Yeah. And I recall also, it's interesting when you say the Queen of Pentacles, I always associate the Queen of Pentacles with a nurse or somebody who is really capable of helping and supporting the physical wellness of the people that they care about.
That's a great way to look at that.
Yeah. And then also too, the Sun card was another one that came up, and that one kept on coming up too. And the gardens in the Sun card really stuck out for me. I thought, why is the gardens so important to me? And it's funny because this year, and my hobby that I've kind of taken up while I've been quarantining, as you know, is gardening.
I know.
Oh my God.
I'm so jealous because I have nothing here in Chicago. I could maybe put one little pot out at my back door with some kind of vegetable or something, but I want a garden.
We've got beautiful flowers behind you.
I do. My internal garden of orchids.
I love it.
And plants.
Yes, yes.
So I want to shift conversation a little bit here because you also wrote a really great book called The 8 Extraordinary Days. And with Beltane here, I'm curious if you could kind of share maybe some of your favorite pieces about Beltane and maybe ways to celebrate, and also how you can incorporate tarot into your Beltane celebration, especially during this time.
Wow. Okay. So, so Beltane, you know, and I should say this too, for the Northern Hemisphere, us in the Northern Hemisphere is celebrating Beltane, and then for all of our friends in New Zealand and Australia and maybe South America, they're going to be celebrating Samhain. But the thing that I love about both Beltane and Samhain is that they're really considered these liminal points in the calendar. So this is like this is the time of year when we really feel this connection to the other world. And for me, Samhain and the other world has this very intense feeling, this almost like very spooky feeling, that haunted house feeling. And the other world connection at Beltane feels much different. And that's because the world is coming alive at Beltane, and at Samhain, the world is kind of hibernating. It's dying, it's passing. Yeah, so it's this very, very different feeling, but it's also a very liminal feeling. So it has that tie. And at Beltane, for me, I look at it as a fertility holiday. Most people think of it as sort of like the sacred rites holiday. It's a holiday of love. It's a holiday. It is. It's a very holiday. It is. It's a very sexy holiday. Like think about the Beltane or the maypole.
Like solo sex magic going.
Yes, it's such a fertile holiday, and it goes along. Like think about what is it looking like outside. It's this exciting time where the world is coming alive. We can finally go outside again. We could finally sit outside and not feel uncomfortable. I don't know, like I'm always cold, so even at Ostara, you know, the spring equinox, everybody's like, we could go outside. I'm like, oh well.
It's cold up here in Chicago. I mean, it's still like in the 40s and stuff. So it's a cold spring. And I see like the plants are slowly coming back to life. But normally like the leaves will be in full bloom. Like the trees will have leaves on them and stuff by now. But it's still, I'm looking out at it right now. It's still trying to come back to life.
Oh, well, yeah, that's really cold. It's interesting too, how people celebrate the holidays based on where they live, because it could be a different feeling. Like I'm in Nashville, and spring in Nashville is both absolutely intoxicatingly beautiful and freaking terrifying. Like we just had tornadoes go
all of those
right down the road
of the tornadoes. It's like was one thing after another for you all out there.
And I feel so bad for people who lost, and it's still happening in the South too, and in the Midwest. It's, you know, they associate April and May with tornado season, and for me, I associate May with I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to have roasted marshmallows
in the city and greenery and the concrete jungle.
Yeah. So Beltane is really considered this vibrant holiday where the world is coming alive around us, and we have this very sensual connection to the other world. For me, I definitely feel nature spirits coming alive, and there's this sensation of nature spirits being able to connect with us, and maybe that's because, you know, all these plants are growing, and and sorry, you don't hear anything, do you? Do you hear any drumming in the background at all?
No, I do not.
Okay, good. Because my boyfriend's a percussionist, and I think that he forgot that I'm doing an interview. And so like I can hear these like conga drums. It's like I live with Matthew McConaughey. It's just like the rhythm is going to get him.
Is drilling into her wall, and the person above me is like stomping around. So that might be picked up too. But hey, it is a fun impromptu little interview.
It's a quarantine life. We're all living on top of
We're
each
not
other.
looking for perfection here, okay? Uh,
Yeah. So anyways, I'm sorry. Like I heard it and I was like, oh my God, like I'm so sorry that there's like this like beat going on. But that's actually kind of funny because like I also think of like this rhythmic feeling of coming out. Like May, we start having these outside festivals. People start celebrating again outside. And where I was going with like the plant spirits and this growth is that a lot of times people associate May Day, Beltane, and the summer solstice. Those are two holidays that are associated with fairies and fairies coming alive and this interaction with the good folk or the fae. And so it's one of these holidays where we could really try and get on their better side by leaving them treats and offerings and really just, celebrating nature and being good to nature too.
mhm.
So, yeah. I love the forest this time of year too, because there's so many good wildflowers.
Yeah. Now I know also too, you have like contributed so many different like spreads, tarot spreads and things to Which Way magazine. You're like the most creative spread creator. And yet I struggle like creating my own spreads. So what kind of, like, I don't know if it's a spread or even maybe a tarot spell or something that people can incorporate with Beltane.
Good question. I'm trying to think of some really good, like, Beltane-ish cards. And there's a couple that come to mind. One is the Nine of Pentacles would be such a good Beltane card because it is just this person in this lush garden. It's very vibrant. It's very exciting. And if you wanted to do a magical spell for abundance and prosperity and just basically getting whatever the hell you want, like I would work with that Nine of Pentacles. That is such a good card. And another one would be, although maybe not because some people think of it as a Demeter card, but I think of it as a Venus card, the Empress.
Oh yeah, I think Venus totally.
Yeah. Well, and I guess because there's the grain sense, there's grain in the card as well.
Yeah.
So some people give it that sort of like grain goddess feel, but I think of it as a Venus, love, sensuality, Aphrodite. So if you wanted to do love magic with your cards, and then there's also, the Lovers would be another one too, because of the sacred right. So those are cards you may want to work with.
Like the Ace of Wands might be good because that's kind of like the pole, right? I mean, it's wands, and so that's the pole for the May Day. And with it being like that fiery vibrance of passion and creativity, that I think that would be a good one. Oh wait, does yours actually kind of looks? Oh no, I lied. I was like, it looks like there's like ribbon going around it, but
it's like little, it's growth. What I love about the Ace of Wands is that the wand is a living thing. Like there's leaves coming out of it. So it's like, it shows that there's vibrancy.
Yeah.
So yeah. And maybe even too, I'm just pulling cards. The Four of Wands would be another great one that I would, thinking going off of what you're saying. Some people say it's a wedding. Some people say it's people performing and that this is a stage. I think both are really wonderful ideas to keep in mind with this sort of activity, this love, this excitement. There's a lot of excitement in the air at Beltane. It's just, it's a lot of fun. And for me, I'm not really the sexy lovey-dovey kind of person, but I am definitely a very green-thumbed fairy kind of person. So I use the holiday as a time to really just honor the outdoors and honor the earth and the woods. So yeah, that's why I'm like, oh, garden cards. I'm trying to find the Nine of Pentacles in here now too.
So, corny question for you. If you were a tarot card, which tarot card would you be?
Ooh, wow. I mean, doesn't everybody say the High Priestess? Everybody says the High Priestess.
Yeah, that's a kind of a go-to one.
I know which one I'm going to say. I'm going to say the Strength card. And it's not that I think that I'm like, like the thing that I like about the Strength card is that it is an unconventional form of strength. She is not gaining she's not domesticating this lion through brute force or through, discipline. It's just through being gentle and through trust and patience. And so what I like about the strength card is that it reminds us that strength doesn't necessarily just have to be this sort of like alpha, monster drink kind of.
Yeah.
I can't believe I said monster drink.
Have to be hard. I mean, there's strength in being soft.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
We have to go with the Empress just because,
I love it. Yeah, the Empress is a good one. Yes, yes. Or the like the Queen of Wands is really
that would be my second choice. The Queen of Wands is like another favorite part of mine.
Yeah, like a very decadent queen.
It's queen. That's me. Sorry, that's the queen with a capital K.
I love it.
I love it. Okay, so then I guess maybe last question, which is kind of my fun question that I'm going to be asking everybody, my little segment that I'm calling, what is your glam? So if you could share either a little recipe or something that, even like a beauty product or anything along those lines that kind of helps empower you and makes you feel vibrant and sexy and alive.
There are a couple things that I'm going to say. The first is a very simple recipe. I don't know why, but it totally works. 1 part patchouli to 1 part amber. So this is an oil recipe. And every time I've had people come up to me and be like, you smell amazing. And so it's this come to me kind of energy.
I love that. And by the way, to people watching, Kiki is like a master witch when it comes to creating lotions and potions and oils and all magical fun creations. Like the things that you've gifted me, I want to say that there was the creative hand balm or something like that. That was like such an intensely beautiful smell. And then there was another thing that you had that had, I want to say, like a mixture of like amber and vanilla and rose or something like that. And it was just so beautiful. That might have been like the Love Drawing hand cream or something like that. But you really know how to mix and maneuver your scents and your fragrances better than I think anybody that I've ever gotten something from. So
well, thank you.
Your stuff. And I have to try that out because that sounds really, really good.
It's so simple, but just like get a very good patchouli, like get good, really healthy, don't just go to the Grateful Dead, you like the bong shop, like to go get like some sort of weird patchouli fragrance. Like that's so funny. Like there are bong shops in the world now and it makes me happy, but not in Tennessee, not yet. But like get like a good essential patchouli and a good amber, and just equal parts. That's it. And my other glam magic is my jewelry. And I love wearing big bling. So this is Flatwoods Fawn specifically that I'm wearing. She's on Etsy, and I love wearing like big earrings. I don't know if we could see. Yeah, like anything that has like a witchy shape and has crystals. So I have labradorite and crystal quartz on today.
Oh, I love that. I have my pentacle that I had made that is a mixture of pearl and what is that? Ruby, rhodochrosite citrine, and green tourmaline. And then I have a lovely little amethyst ring on.
I love it.
Too.
I'm sorry?
I love all things jewelry too. Like that's definitely one of my glams. So I like that. We have some similar glams in mind.
I know. So. You could really draw a different energy in based on the jewelry that you wear and the crystals.
You really can. And that's what's funny too, is like when I try to explain glamour magic to people, it's so funny because it's stuff that everyone does. It's just like we don't think about it. But when you start putting your energy and your intent into what you're wearing and how you're presenting yourself, it just adds so much magic to just your life and becoming a magnet of attraction for all of these really, really great things, or repelling things that you don't want to.
Sure, sure. There are phases when I just wear black.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like I just need to put that shield up. And so like, yeah, you bring up a great point. Like you could have color magic with every single outfit.
Every outfit. And with black too, I always tell, like, black, yes, we know black from color magic is being protection and shielding and all of that, but I always say black is like an absorbent color. So if you wanted to like absorb energies, black is the one that's perfect for that.
I love it.
Like naturally, black absorbs like heat and light and all that different stuff. And shielding for me is going to be like your sequins or your shiny clothes and things like that, because it really reflects things away. Or white, because white reflects too.
I love it. What would you say about wearing like highlighter? Maybe that's a deflector too.
Highlighter is a great deflector too, but also just when you're like applying your makeup and stuff, because there's so many different like forms, you can kind of enchant it as you're working like it into you. So like your concealer, you can actually like draw sigils or ruins or something like that on your face to kind of help, stimulate what it is that you're trying to magnify or have people see in you, blending that into the skin and asking for it to blend into your persona and just your life for that day. Your eyebrows are doing that helps to frame yourself for the day. Any eye makeup or something like that would be great to just to see with clear vision for the day. Lip gloss or chapstick or anything like that to speak truth, to speak only the truth. And then with highlighter, that's a great one to kind of, like you said, I think to deflect things, but then also to accentuate and to highlight your best qualities.
Ooh, I love it. You could highlight your best qualities with highlighter. Like today, I want to highlight so-and-so, such and such.
Yes. Highlight.
That's great.
So where can people find you? Go ahead and plug all of your social media and websites and all of that different stuff. And then also any projects that you have coming up.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So the best way, if people want to follow me on social media, I'm on and off active. The best place to find me on social media is actually Twitter. So Kiki D333. But I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, so you could follow me there. On Instagram, Kiki's Cauldron is where you could find me, and just search my name, Kiki Dombrowski, and I come up on Facebook. KikiDombrowski.com is my website. And in terms of projects, there's two things that I have happening right now that are pretty big. One is Pagan Unity Festival. So Pagan Unity Festival is happening at the end of May. And if you go to paganunityfestival.org, you can get a ticket for this virtual experience. And it's huge.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's like $50 for a full weekend. It's incredible. Like it's really affordable, and you can take classes with like Christopher Penzak and Jason Mankey, and I'm trying to think of other people that are there too. Judica Ills is going to be there, and I'm actually teaching a couple classes on tarot. So yeah, so paganunityfestival.org. And the other thing I'm doing right now is Liminal Earth. That is more supernatural stuff. So I love to do paranormal things. And Liminal Earth is a website. It's actually liminal.earth. And you could go to the website and you could put in any sort of like weird, high strangeness, supernatural experiences that you've had. So I highly recommend, like, if you've ever like seen a ghost or had like a crazy dream, you could write about it at Liminal Earth.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. This was so much fun. And it's so much fun to talk to you always.
I know, you as well. And just talk to in this time, like to have someone to talk to is really, really great. So.
It's really valuable. And I'm grateful for our friendship.
All right, darling. Well, thank you again. Love you so much.
Love you too. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.